Good evening, everyone present here. Today, we will discuss about the issues in communication, growth of communication technology, applications of communication technology, and future of communication technology. So now, let me share my PPT. So now, let us discuss. Before going to discuss the issues of communication, we have to discuss about the concept of education. What is concept of communication? Now, communication is defined. We can define it in three ways. Like this is an art, this is in science, and this is also a skill. So it is defined in these three different way. We can define it. Why it is called as an art? Because it includes something that is creative. That's why it is an, we can say this is an art. And this is a science. Second thing is that this is a science. So based on certain principle, the communication is based on certain principle. That's why we can say that it is science. And when we are saying that this is a skill, then it contains certain learnable techniques for communication. Some learnable techniques are needed. That's why we can refer to it as a skill also. So it is better, we can say it is a science as well as a skill. And sometimes creativity is also essential. So we can define from all these things, we can define communication like this, that communication is defined as a sharing of ideas and feeling in a mode of mutuality. So, communication is a process, no doubt it is a process, but communication is sharing of ideas and feeling in a mood of mutuality. Not only sharing of ideas, but it is in a mood of sharing mutuality. Mutuality must be there, otherwise, the sender who is communicating, he or she will communicate the message, and it is not whether it is received to the receiver or not, that cannot be assured. So when somebody is communicating, means somebody is sharing the ideas. That's at that time he or she may have the ideas and feelings that what I am sending, that is received by somebody. So from this definition we can conclude or interpret that when there is a sender, there must be a receiver. Otherwise, without receiver, the sender is sending something that may be futile. That's why when we will proceed to the components of communication as a process, or the components of communication process, then we can find there five uh, components. Five component and more components may be added after that. One component is your sender. What the sender is doing, the sender is actually the individual or person who is sending the message. That is the sender. So it may be anybody who is initiating the communication process or who is sending the message, that is the sender. Then the next one is your message. Message is the information or concept or instruction which needs to be conveyed, which is being conveyed, that is the message. And sender is sending the message through what? Through a medium, that is the channel. So the medium through which the message is transmitted, it may be the spoken words or written text or digital platform or in any means it is transmitted, means this is the channel, and through the channel the message is transmitted to the receiver. Then receiver, it's maybe anybody, maybe student or educator or anybody who is receiving and interpreting the message. Not only receiving, the receiver when it is receiving, then it is also interpreting the message what is given to him. Then if the receiver or who is receiving, then if he is interpreting the message, means there must be a feedback. Feedback must come from the receiver. So feedback is the response from the receiver. So sender is sending the message through the channel to the receiver, and the receiver is providing or getting back to the sender through the feedback, which can help the sender gauge understanding and effectiveness. What I am sending, whether it is effective or not, whether it is effective or not, that can be gauged by the sender. So if now we will proceed towards defining communication is in a better way, then it is better to define it from different point of views. What are those different point of views? What we have talked about now, the components. So from different component point of view, we can also define communication. So if you are a source or the sender, then if you want to define this, then from the source point of view, communication is essentially persuasion. Persuasion, that means to assure you as a communicator that your communication has taken place or that the desired outcomes are achieved. That is the source point of view. When somebody is the source or someone is the sender, then sender always hope or feel that what I am giving, that must persuade the receiver. That's why the source or the sender assure that his or her communication has taken place and desired outcomes has been achieved. So here, for example, if you take the example of the teaching as a communication process, so here the teacher is sending some information, or the teacher is communicating. At that time, the teacher expect that, or it desired that the outcomes will be achieved by the receiver, by the students. So this is the source point of view discussion, definition. Then, if we will proceed to the receiver's point of view, then we will find that the receiver's point of view, the communication is a process to elicit the desired responses. As a source, you would be happy if the receiver could behave in a way you intended her to behave. What the sender wants, what the source wants, what type of changes the source wants among the receivers. If the receivers are behaving in that way, then only we can say that communication has happened. So it is a process to elicit the desired responses. At that time the source become happy or the sender become happy that the receiver has received the message, or the receiver is behaving in the desired way what the sender has imagined that in that way the communication process is going to change, then the sender always wants to see the change in the receiver. And when we will come to the channel point of view, at that time communication is a medium, a carrier of information from source to the receiver and vice versa, also from receiver to sender. This is also communication in the form of feedback. So, in other words, we can say that communication is defined in terms of functions to be performed or the objectives to be achieved. So, always objective need to be achieved. That is the purpose of communication. So, why we will communicate? Communicate means you have a certain purpose behind communication. So, when you are communicating means you need the result. You desire that the result will be achieved. So, according to Shannon and Weaver, which is the famous communication model, in 1949, the primary concern of communication is to reproduce as faithfully as possible a message sent from one place to another place. As faithfully as the message will be reproduced, at that time we can say that it is communication. So this is Shannon Weaver model. So Shannon Weaver, in the 1949, he tried to define communication in that way that the primary concern of communication is to reproduce as faithfully as possible a message sent from one place to another place. Then next we will come to, on the basis of different explanations of communication, Scrum in 1973 defined communication as the function of persuading. If you are communicating means you are persuading somebody, persuading something, or informing, teaching and entertaining people. Anything you are doing, any act you are doing, then through communication you are persuading somebody. So, therefore, communication is a process by which people create and share information with one another in order to reach a common understanding. So, why we communicate? We communicate for developing a common understanding. If I will not communicate, then a common understanding will not be developed, the idea will not be shared and not be perceived by the receiver, by the other people who are in my surrounding. So communication is a process by which the people create and share information with one another in order to reach a common understanding. Then next we will go to the functions of communication. Before that I have to make it slide. So okay, then what are the functions of communication? You can say, on the basis of the explanations, we can say there are different functions. So according to McBride in 1980, he has discussed some functions of communication in a social system. So as we are staying in a living in a social system, then these are the some of the functions of communication. One is your information, then socialization for the purpose of providing motivation and educational purpose, entertainment purpose. So all these are the functions of communication. So first one is your information sharing. So communication allows for the exchange of information between the individuals or groups. This can include your fact, thought, ideas, and feeling. That what you thought, what is your idea, what is your feeling, you are sharing it. That is information sharing. Then effective communication always ensures that information is accurately conveyed and understood by all parties involved. Here in the information sharing you can find two things. One is you are sharing your thoughts, your feeling, your facts, what the facts you know, your thoughts, your ideas, everything you are sharing. But you are not ensuring that whether the second party who is involved in this process, whether he is getting it or not. But when the it will be called as effective communication, when you ensure, it is ensured that the information is accurately conveyed, what the sender is sending, the receiver is understanding it or getting the point properly, accurately, and understood it properly, then it will be called as effective communication. Similarly, the second one is your education and learning. So, through communication, knowledge can be transferred from one person to another or from one generation to the next generation. It plays a crucial role in education, training, and development process. And in persuasion and influence, communication is used to persuade or influence others. This can be seen in various contexts such as advertising, political campaign, leadership, management, where the goal is to convince others to adopt certain beliefs, attitude, or to take specific action. So, this is also the purpose of communication, persuasion, and influence. The next is your social interaction. Communication is essential for building and maintaining relationships. It allows individuals to express their emotions, share experiences, and create bonds with others. Social interaction through communication is fundamental to the development and sustenance of communities and societies. Without communication, society will not exist. Individual may exist, but society will not exist that way. This is also an important function of communication. Next is your problem solving decision making. When you have a problem or you have to make some decisions, at that time, effective communication is very essential. So, effective communication facilitates problem solving and decision making process. It involves gathering and sharing relevant information, discussing options, and arriving at consensual decisions in personal, professional, and political context. Then entertainment and enjoyment purpose. Communication can also serve the purpose of entertainment. Through storytelling, media, arts, and performances, communication provides enjoyment and relaxation to individuals and communities. So in this case also, it may be verbal or non-verbal again. Then regulation and control. In organizational and societal context, communication is used to establish norms, rules, and regulations. It helps in controlling behavior within groups and ensure the smooth functioning of organizations and societies. Then cultural expression and preservation. Communication plays a vital role in expressing and preserving the culture. Before invention of any print material, there was a cultural transmission. How the culture was transmitted? It is through communication. The first generation people, they communicate with the next generation so that cultural transmission occurs. Without communication, it cannot be transmitted. So through language, literature, art, and rituals, cultural values, beliefs, and traditions are communicated and passed down through generations. Next is your identity formation and reinforcement. Communication helps individuals and groups to express their identities and reinforce their sense of belonging to a community, culture, or social group. It allows for the expression of personal values, interests, and characteristics. So, when you are not expressing yourself, you are not communicating your personal values, interest, and characteristic to other. Up to that point, there will be no identity formation, and your identity may also influence sometimes or reinforce sometimes to other people's. Then conflict resolution. Effective communication is key to resolving misunderstandings, disagreements, and conflicts. Through open and honest dialogue, parties can express their viewpoints, understand each other's perspectives, and work towards mutually acceptable solutions. Then we will proceed to these are the functions of communication. Then we will go to the means of communication. So there are different tools and media which serve as means of communication among human beings. So starting from the science, the primitive means to supercomputer based communication, there are various techniques, technologies and materials generally used to collect, produce, carry, receive, store, retrieve and disseminate information. So all human beings make use of one or the other means of communication. So a mean is very essential in communication. Without a means, we cannot communicate. There are some points like your verbal communication. Another is non-verbal also. So in verbal communication, there are face-to-face conversation, direct interaction between individuals, allowing for instant feedback and non-verbal cues. Instant, it is instant face-to-face conversation. Then telephone call is also a verbal communication, voice conversation over distance, lacking individual visual cues but immediate communication it is. Then video call or conference, this is the present day communication, means of communication. So it combines voice and visual, allowing for a more comprehensive communication experience through the platforms like your Zoom platform or Google Meet platform or Skype platform were there prior to this, or it may be your Microsoft Team platform. So any platform or Geo platform is also there. So any platform it may be, but video call or conference is also a means of communication, and it is the main mean of communication now. Then non-verbal communication, this is not direct communication, or it does not use words, but non-verbally through body language or sign language or physical cues, you express your feelings, thought, values, attitude, interest, characteristic, everything you express without using any verbal language or without using any language. So this is your body language, is your posture, it may be your gesture, your facial expression, your eye contact, your eye movement also. They also convey the feelings and attitude to the second party, to the receiver. And this speaks like your verbal communication. Similarly, you have sign language, so a visual way of communicating using hand gesture, body language, facial expression designed for deaf and hard of hearing people, that is called as sign language. Then physical cues, touch or proximity can communicate comfort, aggression, affection or other social signals. This is the non-verbal communication. Then written communication. In written form also we communicate, that is your emails, formal or non informal written conversation that are asynchronous, letters and mail, that is traditional form of communication, tangible and often considered more personal or official, that is email. Then reports and documents, that is structured written formats for conveying information in detail, typically in professional setting. Then next, text messaging and chat or apps. So instant messaging through SMS or application like WhatsApp, Telegram, etc. They are offering quick and casual communication. Then next mode is your digital and social media. This is the present era. This media is used in the present era. That is your social networking sites like the platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn that facilitate both public and private communication. Then blogs and forums, they provide a platform for sharing information or discussing topics in a more detailed and less interactive way than social media. No interaction is there, but they communicate what they want, what they thought, what is their ideas. They communicate through blogs and different forums. Then content sharing platform. The sites like your YouTube, Instagram, all allows users to communicate through videos, photos, and comments, etc. Then the emerging technology is one of the form of communication, that is your virtual reality and augmented reality. Now this is the emerging technology. So virtual reality offers immersive experiences for communication, especially in gaming, education, and training. Then next is your artificial intelligence and chatbots. So this enable automated communication for customer service, information dissemination, and interaction in various applications. So these are the emerging technologies of communication. Other than this, also some more traditional forms we had at that time. Postal system was there, land phone system was there, mass media is also there. Also, the satellite system of communication, which is used. Okay, then next we will proceed to the process of communication. So the function and means of after discussing the function and means of communication, so what is the process? The process of communication we have to discuss. So the process of communication, most widely accepted, that one is of Shannon Weaver model or Shannon Weaver process of, which was suggested by Shannon and Weaver in 1949. This was the process of communication which identifies five elements in the process, that is your source, receiver, channel, coding system, and noise. And also there is context may also come there. We shall discuss this in this manner. Like your first is your sender or encoder. The sender is the person, as we have already discussed, who initiates the communication process by conveying a message. The sender encodes or translates their thoughts or ideas into a form that can be communicated, such as words, gesture, or visual aids, it may be, but you have to encode it in that. You have to encode it in such a form that it can be communicated or conveyed. The next one is your message. The message is the information, ideas, or feelings that the sender wants to communicate. It can be verbal, it can be non-verbal, it may be written, or it may be visual. So the clarity and effectiveness of message is very important, and it is significantly influence the success of the communication process. So the message is very important. When the message is ambiguous or no clarity is there, then the message will not be effective. So the clarity and effectiveness of the message is very important in the process of communication. Next is your encoding. Encoding is the process by which the sender transforms the message into symbols or signals that can convey the intended meaning, such as language, gesture, or written text. This step is crucial because it determines how well the message is formulated for transmission to the receiver. So for the receiver, it should be encoded, otherwise it cannot be transmitted in a effective way. Then next is your channel. So channel is the medium through which the message is sent from the sender to the receiver. The channels can be your oral channel, or it may be your written channel, electronic or non-verbal, and each has its own set of advantages and limitations. The choice of channel can affect the message clarity and reception. Then next is your receiver. Next is your receiver who decodes. So receiver is the person for whom the message is intended. Upon receiving the message, the receiver decodes or interprets it based on their own experiences, attitudes, and knowledge. Effective decoding is essential for understanding the message as intended by the sender. The next is your decoding process. When encoding through encoding, the sender sends and receiver receive through decoding. So decoding is the process by which the receiver interprets the sender's message. And this stage involves translating the symbols or signals back into the form that the receiver can understand. The effectiveness of decoding is influenced by the receiver's ability to accurately interpret the message. So, that depends upon the receiver how he is going to decode the message, and that will influence the receiver. So, the receiver's decoding capability is also important in the process of communication. If the receiver is not able to decode it properly, then the communication may not be effective. So, decoding is a important process here. Then, after decoding, after receiving the message, the receiver will interpret the message at that time. Obviously the receiver is going to provide feedback to the sender. So the feedback is the response of the receiver to the sender's message. It can confirm received and understanding of the message, clarify misunderstandings, or indicate disagreement. Feedback is a crucial component of effective communication because it allows for adjustment and ensures mutual understanding. Without feedback, there will no mutual understanding. So, for mutual understanding, feedback need to be provided. Feedback is a must component in the communication process. Then we will proceed to the, and these are the components. But in the process we are discussing here, what is the communication process. In the process there may be certain barriers, like your noise refers to any interference or distraction that affects any stage of the communication process, leading to misunderstandings or distortion of the message. Noise can be physical, that means your maybe their background sounds or any other sounds, psychological also, such as preconception or biases. You are decided or preoccupied by something, then it will be a barrier. Or semantic, arising from differences in understanding or interpretation of symbols, what the sender is sending, which type of symbol the sender is sending, and how you are interpreting, this is also a included under noise. Okay, so noise will act as a barrier in case of communication, but here it has been also described by the Shannon-Weaver, the process of communication. Then the context is very essential in the communication process. What is that context? The context encompasses the environment or situation in which the communication takes place. It includes physical setting, cultural backgrounds, social norms, and emotional states of the communicators. So everything is the context for communication. So context can significantly influence the interpretation and effectiveness of communication. So it is very essential. Context can significantly influence the interpretation and effectiveness of communication. Okay, then we will proceed to types of communication. There are different types of communication. We will discuss here one by one. One is your interpersonal communication, another is your group communication, then your organizational communication, and mass communication. So, what is that interpersonal communication? As the name suggests, interpersonal communication occurs between two or more individuals in a direct, face to face manner, and it involves the exchange of information and feelings and can include both verbal and non-verbal elements. Interpersonal communication is fundamental in building and maintaining personal and professional relationship. So interpersonal communication is a very essential thing in our society, in a society. Then group communication. Group communication takes place among a small group of people, typically with a common goal or interest. It can occur in meeting, discussion, workshop, social gatherings, anywhere it may be there. So that is group communication. Effective group communication requires good listening skills, clear verbal expression, and ability to give and receive feedback constructively. Very important to be noted here, the constructively. So when we are communicating in a group, there should be the feedback should be in a constructive manner, and it is the important part of communication, otherwise communication will be futile. So constructive suggestion, we say that the constructive feedback, you give your constructive feedback, not that you blame somebody. Somebody is expressing, the sender, he or she is expressing the thoughts, ideas, everything whatever it may be. Then at that time you have to, as a listener, you should have the listening skill, good listening skill. You should have clear verbal expression, otherwise you cannot communicate there also. If you have not no clear verbal expression, then you are not able to express clearly in the group, so it may create a problem also. And ability to give and receive, give feedback, also receive feedback constructively. That is the principle of group communication. Then next is your mass communication. Mass communication is the process of disseminating message to a large, diverse audience through various media channels. This includes newspapers, television, radio, and the internet. Then mass communication is used for public information, entertainment, advertising, and propaganda. For everything, the mass communication is used. Then your organizational communication. Organizational communication is again can be of different types. Like your organizational communication can be classified into several types based on direction, style, and purpose. One is your internal communication, that is downward communication, upward communication, and it may be your horizontal communication. Downward communication means information flows from higher level of organizational hierarchy to lower level, such as policies, your procedures, directives from management to employee. All these things pass in a downward communication. They started from the organizational head or organizational head, yes, we can say organizational head, through a hierarchy to the lower level of employees or from management to employees. That is your downward communication. Then when we say the upward communication, then upward communication is the reverse of downward communication. The information flows from lower level to the higher level of the organization, such as where is the higher level to lower level to higher level movement. When the sender is sending and the receiver is receiving, again the receiver is interpreting something and passing it to the sender through feedback, then this type of communication, you can say this is the upward flow or the upward communication. Here the information flows from the lower level or the receiver to the higher level of organization, such as or in the form of feedback, it may be your suggestions or reports from the employees to the management. These are the upward communication. Similarly, you have horizontal communication. In horizontal communication, there is no hierarchy or upper or lower limit. It passes or flows in a horizontal manner, like your information flows between individuals or departments at the same level within the organization, between departments, between the same persons, between the assistant directors or directors, between directors of different heads. So this is your horizontal communication, facilitating collaboration and coordination. In a suppose in a teaching or institution, there are different departments. So when the communication occurs between different departments, that is your horizontal communication. When the information passes from the head of the institution to the lower level, then it is downward communication. And when the employees passes their feedback or suggestion or something to the management, then it is upward communication. Similarly, all these things are internal communication. In internal communication, you have now three types of communication you can find. The next is your external communication, where what happens in the external communication, it involves the exchange of information between the organization and external entity. Who are the external entities? The external entities are the customers, they may be the suppliers, they may be investors, and they may be the public. So, this includes marketing, public relations, customer service, and partnership communications. So, these are external communication, means one organization is communicating to other organization. That is your external communication. Then we will proceed to the barriers in the way of effective communication. Communication is there, but when there is a process, there must be certain barriers, some advantages, some disadvantages. Similarly, some barriers are there also in the communication process. So the effective communication is essential for success in various aspects of life, including personal relationship, education, and professional environments. However, several barriers can impede the process of effective communication. Understanding these barriers is the first step towards overcoming them. If you will not understand the barriers, you will not be able to overcome them. So, some common barriers to effective communication may be, the number one may be the physical barriers. The physical barriers are Environmental factors that obstruct the flow of information. The physical barriers can include the distance between people, making face to face communication difficult. When there is a great distance between the people who are sitting in the hall or anywhere, then they may not be able to hear you clearly, or they may not be able to listen, so that it will distance will act as a physical barrier in that case. Then poor or outdated communication infrastructure, such as faulty telecommunication system. Then it is the if it is outdated, then if you are talking something to them, they will be unable to hear to you properly. So this will create a barrier, as a physical barrier for you. Then physical obstruction and office layout that limit visibility and accessibility. For example, if you are on a online meeting, and your bandwidth is very low, at that time you will not be able to see the video properly or access things properly. So this will also act as a barrier in the system. Then after physical barrier, there is your psychological barrier. One minute. Next barrier is your psychological barrier. The psychological barriers arise from emotions, your attitudes, and social psychology. What are the attitude, emotion, or social psychology? One may be your stress and anxiety, which can affect an individual's ability to communicate effectively. Your prejudices or biases, leading to misinterpretation or dismissal of certain message. All these are psychological barriers. For example, suppose you are giving or you are teaching in the classroom. Psychological barrier in case of educational communication, I am talking about this, that in the educational class you are supposed teaching the political science, and you have some political bias or prejudices, then it will help to misinterpret the information, may help to misinterpret the message. So this will act as a psychological barrier for you. Then lack of attention, lack of interest, lack of if you are distracted, feeling distracted or preoccupied with certain other matter, your mind is somewhere else, and you are listening to the to something, or someone is communicating to you, but you are not able to get the point. That is your preoccupation with that matter, with other matters. So preoccupation with other matter will create lack of attention. So if you are you have a lack of attention, then there will be no interest, and no interest means you have a distraction. So these are the psychological barriers in communication. Then next come the third one is your language barriers. This is the common thing that we all know, that there are language barriers, different language or vocabulary we are using, and this may sometime lead to misunderstanding or misinterpretations. So, how language is creating barriers? Language, actually, when we communicate, language is not the only way of communication. With the language, we are also using what we have discussed previously. That what we are using the language along with some non-verbal communication. We communicate non-verbally along with the language. So, it also sometimes are misunderstood or misinterpreted by the receiver. So sometimes happen, all these things happen in the every type of communication. So speaking in language that is not the first language of the receiver, If I am speaking in Tamil language and you are not able to understand Tamil, then it is a language barrier. Ambiguities or nuances in language that can lead to different interpretation. So different ambiguity, if it is the message will not be clear. This is the message part. So language is used to convey the message. This is in the message part. If there will be ambiguities, then it will lead to different type of interpretation. Somebody may interpret in different way, somebody may interpret in other way. So these are some of the language barriers. Then next we will proceed to the cultural barriers. The cultural differences may affect communication process in various ways, such as your different norms regarding the use of nonverbal clues, gestures and facial expression. This is very a awkward situation. Sometimes it creates some awkward situation, like suppose if we are moving to the toilet, then we have to show the little finger. Somewhere the people use the little finger to as a non-verbal clue for the that we have a toilet or we are going to the toilet. But somewhere it may be different. This may be other finger, or this little finger may mean some other things. So this create a problem. At that time, it acts as a barrier. So varied understanding of politeness, hierarchy, and respect. Somewhere, some people use politeness, same gesture of politeness in different way. Some expresses gesture of politeness in other way. So it may be interpreted on the basis of culture, on the basis of cultural differences. So this at that time acts as a cultural barrier. Then diverse attitude towards conflict, decision making, personal space. So everything comes under the cultural barrier. When there is a conflict, what is your attitude in your culture, and in some other culture, in British culture, their attitude may be different. So their decision making style may be different. So this is the personal space. So when you are communicating, when it happens generally, where it happens, you are suppose you have gone to America, like Vivekananda, you have gone to America, and there you are communicating your speech to the American people, and you are starting from dear brothers and sisters. Dear brothers and sisters means and they are very happy with this. But our people here in Odisha or in our India, so our people may not be happy with that. So these are the cultural barriers. This acts as a cultural barrier in communication process. So then next is your emotional barrier. What is emotional barrier? The emotions can greatly impact how messages are sent, received, and interpreted, including your anger or frustration that can lead to aggressive communication or an unwillingness to listen. When you are in an anger mood, generally this type of things happen in our classes. Okay, this type of things happen in our classes when our teacher come with a anger mood to the class. Then what happened, the when the teacher came with some anger, then the all the frustration is on the students. So this act as a emotional barrier. This we can say this is a emotional barrier. So anger or frustration that can lead to aggressive communication or an unwillingness to listen. It will create a situation so that the receiver will not receive, or the communication is not fruitful. It will act as a barrier here. Then sadness or withdrawal, which can hinder upon communication. When a person is very sad, then it will also act as an emotional barrier. Over enthusiasm, which might overshadow or dismiss potential issues or concerns. So these are some of the emotional barriers which prevent the communication process, or which create a barrier for communication process. The message which need to be transmitted from the sender to the receiver, it will not properly reach the receiver, because the problem is with the sender. So all these things need to be kept in mind while communicating something. Then perceptual barriers. Perceptions are a very important thing. So perception, how we perceive, they like we perceive like we interpret. So perception and interpretations affect how messages are understood. You are telling to your students that you will not you stand in a line or stand in a queue, and your shirts or sweaters will not be visible to me, the teacher, when making the queue. So the students may interpret tomorrow, from tomorrow we are not coming to school with a sweater or a shirt, because the teacher is saying that no, there is no need to one sweater will not be visible. So like this it may be interpreted like in this manner according to your perception. So the sender has a perception, also the receiver has a perception. So how the sender is perceiving the same thing, and how the receiver is perceiving the same thing while receiving the message through a channel. So, the stereotyping or halo effect, where the receiver's perception of the sender influence how the message is received. Then projection of personal experience or belief onto the interpretation of message. When you are projecting some personal experiences, the personal experiences are always create the perceptual barriers. Suppose, for example, I will say that there are ghosts. I believe that I have a belief that there are ghosts, but the receiver may not believe that there are ghosts. So this is personal experience. I can say I have seen the ghost. The receiver will say I have not seen the ghost. So this is a perceptual barrier. Then next we will proceed to the organizational barriers. So as we have discussed, we have different types of communication, like your interpersonal communication, group communication, organizational communication, and mass communication. Similarly, also we are discussing the various organizational barriers. What are the organizational barriers? So in organizational context, several factors can impede effective communication, including your hierarchical structures that restrict the flow of information. Your hierarchical structure means, suppose a head suppose the head of the institution is communicating with you as a lawyer or hierarchy people, he is or she is communicating with you, then you are also as a receiver, you also want that I will also give feedback or suggestion in this regard, but due to the hierarchy you are unable to pass that feedback, or what you want to say you may not say. So these are the organizational barrier. So the one fourth grade employee, or the who is in the lower level of hierarchy, he or she may not express directly or may not give feedback or suggestion directly to the boss. So this is also act as a barrier. The silo mentality, where information is not shared between departments or units, that is also a barrier. Information, so sharing is very essential in an institution, in an organization. Sharing is very essential, which is sometimes it is found that a communication gap is created due to this problem. They are not communicating properly, so a communication gap is created. So information overload, where the sheer volume of communication reduces the ability to process message effectively. So when there is information overload, you are getting thousands of letters per day. You from the head of the institution, from different organization, from everywhere you are overloaded with information. Then also there will be a communication gap. Then communication will not be proper. You are not able to handle all those information, or the communicator who is communicating with you, the sender who is sending to you as a receiver, you may not interpret it or may not handle it properly. So this also acts as a overload, also act as a organizational barrier. Then we will go to the And these are the common barriers. And now, for better understanding, we will deal with the barriers caused by different components of communication. As we have discussed already, there are different components of communication, like your sender, who is sending the message, he is the sender. Then the message, then the channel, then the receiver, then again the feedback. And also there are some other components like your noise, context, etc. Then the barriers caused by the sender. What are the barriers? Which components, which things act as a barrier for the sender? First thing, that is lack of clarity. If the sender is not clear about what he or she is sending or what he or she is communicating, then it will act as a barrier for the senders. So the sender may use vague or ambiguous language, technical jargon, or overly complex terms that receiver does not understand. So always look that what you were sending, what you were speaking, the listeners or the receivers should grasp it, should receive it. So lack of clarity act as a barrier for the sender. Then assumptions. Assuming that the receiver has prior knowledge or understanding of the subject matter can lead to misunderstanding of gaps in information. This is a very big issue now with the sender assumption. And in another thing what we have discussed, the educational communication. The educational communication is what we are using in our teaching system. In the teaching process, the teacher is transmitting the subject matter, the facts, concepts, etc. These are the message. And when through which channel, what is the medium? The channel is the material, or the audio video material, or different component. It may be visual, maybe audio, maybe something, some other thing. So then it is received by the student. But before being received by the student, there are different barriers like your noise, the noisy environment, learning environment, level of motivation, presentation of instructional material. All these act as a barrier. And comprehension of subject matter. Subject matter comprehension is also important here. After that, the student receive it. Teacher send the subject matter, facts or concept. So subject matter, fact, concept are the message what the teacher want to um, uh, deliver it or want to send it to the receiver. Receiver are the students. So through what the teacher is sending, the teacher is explaining it through materials, audio video components, audio visual aids. All these things are the channel. So through which the teacher is sending. Then it need to reach to the student. So student is the receiver. So before reaching the student, there may be certain barriers like your learning environment, noise component is there. Learning environment, your level of motivation, this is also coming under noise component. The presentation of instructional materials, that is also coming under noise component. So after all these things, if the students are able to understand, if they comprehend the thing, then we can get the outcome in student, or the student are the receivers here. The students in the receiver, that means in terms of change in behavior or change in knowledge of the student, we will get the outcome. Then when we will get the outcome, then feedback will be provided to teacher whether the student's behavior changed or not changed. But here, this was the teaching model or educational communication process. So educational communication process also, we here assumption also acts as a barrier. Sometimes what is happening in the educational communication process, that the teachers are assuming that the receiver, the student, have a prior knowledge of or understanding of the subject matter in this technology era. So it is leading to the misunderstanding, or it is creating the gap in knowledge or gaps in information. So assumption is also acting as a barrier. Then emotional state is a barrier with the sender. Emotional state, if the sender is emotional, stressed, or distracted, it can affect how the message is formulated and delivered. potentially leading to unclear or biased communication. So, biased communication, to avoid biased communication, you have to remove this emotional state barrier. Then, poor listening skills. Poor listening skill is actually the barrier with the receiver also, but poor listening skill why included in sender list? Because if poor listening skill means when the feedback is received from the receiver to the sender, at that time poor listening skill may be a barrier with the sender. So poor listening skill means while typically considered a receiver issue, senders also need to listen, especially to feedback, to adjust their message and ensure it's understood. Then next is your lack of empathy. It is a very important barrier nowadays. Failing to consider the receiver's perspective, feelings, or circumstances can result in messages that are poorly received or misunderstood. What someone is saying, lack of empathy means it has an underlying condition that you are not listening, you are not attending the receiver. If you are not attending the receiver, then you are only sending and sending, then it will be considered as lack of empathy as a barrier with the sender. So lack of empathy means you have to understand, as a sender you have to understand the behavior of the receiver. You have to feel what the receiver is feeling. That is your empathy. But this is generally happening, this came into existence, I think, from the online mode. When we are shifting to the online mode of education, at that time there is lack of empathy. You are supposed teaching in the online mode or digital, in the covid period it has started. We were teaching, the teacher is teaching and the listener, they are not listening. They are somewhere else, they are in the market, they may be in the museum, they may be in the theater, but virtually they are present. So at that time we can say that this is lack of empathy is arising as a barrier. Then nonverbal cues. Inconsistent or inappropriate use of nonverbal communication can contradict or obscure the intended message. Okay, then we will proceed to the barriers caused by the receivers. So receivers prejudices and biases. Almost same type of barrier you can find. Prejudices and biases, the preconceived notions about the sender or the content of the message can lead to distortion or in how the message is received or interpreted. Suppose the receiver is in a mindset that that particular individual is saying, means when you go to the tv set and see that oh yes, Ramdev Baba is speaking something, so no, I don't want to listen to him. Then you immediately uh, went from there, that I will not listen. No, I am biased. You are biased that you are not going to listen to Ramdev Baba. So this is preconceived notion. So this is also, also you listen in the present moment, you listen. So you see the person first who is speaking and on what he is speaking, what is the message. So that is also a prejudice or bias. I don't want to listen on that yoga topic. Then this is your prejudices, your biasness. So this will not help to receive the message properly. So this is prejudices and biases act as a barrier in those cases. Then lack of attention, distraction, lack of interest, or preoccupation with other thoughts can prevent the receiver from fully processing the message. You cannot process the message fully. Okay, so attention is also an important thing. If you have attention, then you are going to listen, then you will receive something. Then poor listening skill. These all are related. Poor listening skill, ineffective listening skill such as not paying full attention or interrupting the sender. Sometimes that happen in a educational communication, interrupting the sender. That the sender has a flow of communicating something, but in the mid session, some individuals are there, some receivers are there who put questions from here and there, so the flow breaks. So the communication it acts as a barrier at that time. So ineffective listening skills such as not paying full attention or interrupting the sender can hinder the accurate reception of the message. Then emotional state. The emotional condition of the receiver can color their interpretation of the message, leading to misunderstanding or incorrect assumptions. Then, differing perception. The receiver may have a different frame of reference or interpret words and symbols in a way that was not intended by the sender. The sender was sometimes, so many times this happened. This is called as communication gap. This is actually the communication barriers. So differing in perception means two people who are interacting with each other, that means communicating with each other, they have different perception. Someone is, the sender is, or the first person is saying that or perceiving the elephant as a tiger, and the second is perceiving the elephant as a elephant. So there will be a gap. There will this is the differing perception, and this will create a barrier in communication. Then language and cultural differences. Differences in language proficiency, dialect or cultural background can lead to misinterpretation of the message. So these are some of the barriers with the receiver. Then overcoming the sender and receiver barrier. How to overcome this sender and receiver barrier? Barriers are there. So how we can communicate in a better way? Now, when we are able to know the barriers and how to overcome the barrier, when we will be able to know, then we will be able to overcome the barrier. So, improving communication requires effort from both senders and receivers. What to do to remove the barrier? First of all, active listening. First of all, you have to remove all your prejudices and biases and remain in the present context, present situation to listen. So, active listening, this is called as active listening. So, both parties should practice active listening, focusing fully on the speaker. Sometimes this also happens that someone I am saying, speaking something else, and you are understanding something else due to the fact that you are not in an active state of listening. So, focusing fully on the speaker, what he or she is trying to speak, then only you can understand or you can receive something. When you will be able to receive, then only you will be able to understand the message. So both parties should practice active listening, and you should have a how active listening can be done or practiced. You can focus fully on the speaker, what he is exactly speaking, what he is actually speaking, then understanding their message, asking clarifying questions and providing feedback. So, in case of empathy, also, as you know, that when your first step is attending, you have to attend that person who is speaking. Then you have to listen, attend, then listen. Then you interact or clarify. Yes, you are doing this. Then what will be done? What you are, that means you are listening, attending, and listening. So asking for clarifying question. The sender is sending the message, you have to clarify. Ask the questions to clarify. Where is the point? Actually, what is that? That type of questioning will act as a feedback for the sender. Then only sender will also feel that the receiver is receiving the message. But when the sender is only sending and sending and sending, and there is no feedback from the receiver, then it is not active listening. And okay, then this is the active listening part. We have to do that while communication process is going on. Then clarity and simplicity. The sender should strive for clarity using simple and direct language and avoiding jargon unless it is shared by the receiver. If receiver is sharing, that means you know that this is their standard, I have to use all these things, but otherwise the sender must be very clear and must be very simple in communicating. If I will use the complex words, then the receiver may not be able to receive it properly. So feedback mechanism. Implementing feedback loops allows sender to verify that their message was understood as intended and receivers to clarify doubts or misunderstanding. This is called as feedback mechanism in the communication process. I am sending you the message, what is there, what is there, what is there. Then I also expect the feedback from the listener, from the receiver, so that sender will be satisfied that yes, the way I am transmitting or I am sending the message, that is properly and in a proper way received by the receiver. This is called as feedback mechanism. Then empathy and open-mindedness. Then understanding and considering the other person's perspective can help overcome biases and emotional barriers. So it should be there. Empathy and open mindedness must be there. It is a very essential thing. Open mindedness, if you have a closed mind, you have closed your mind from every side, then you will not be able to listen actively. Actively means you will not be able to listen what actually the sender is sending. So that is open mindedness. You have to keep your mind open so that you can listen actively. Then adaptability, being flexible in communication style and methods to suit the context and the receiver's preferences can significantly enhance understanding. So the communication style are different of different people. So the methods adapted are also different. So the receiver have to adapt to the context, in which context the sender is sending. So adaptability, if you will increase your adaptability, then also you can receive the message properly. Then cultural competency. The learning about and respecting cultural differences can improve cross cultural communication and reduce misunderstanding. This is cultural competency. So think about the Vivekananda's America tour. So our culture was giving a positive message for them. They were thinking that this is a positive message, but somewhere it may be the opposite. Okay, then implication or application of communication technology in your distance education. We will discuss about it. Okay, the effective communication is vital for student engagement and learning outcomes in distance education. It fosters a sense of community and enables interaction between instructor and learners. So it is very important communication technology in distance education. Then what are the challenges? Okay, 1 minute. Okay, this is the part. Okay, next first we will discuss about the growth of communication technology, then we will proceed to that slide. So how, what is the evolution? Before going to that, we have to know about the evolution of print media in the digital age. How it is evolved, the communication technology, how it is developed. What is the process? First, it was developed. The Chinese developed the paper technology. If we will go to the print media, then the Chinese developed the paper technology first. Then after that, there was no system of printing something. So Gutenberg was there who discovered the idea of printing. So before going to that, the traditional beginning, then our digital transformation, then challenges and opportunity. The traditional beginning, the print media was the primary source of information for centuries, including newspaper, magazine, and books. Before this type of material, there was what they were doing. The verbal communication was there. Some and they were communicating verbally in time of at the earliest of 1868. The teaching of Lord Buddha at that time were printed by movable type of China in the book form. So China at that time was in the forefront in the print medium case. And in 1400, John Gutenberg of Germany in mid 1400 played a major role in bringing about the mass printing of books. So it was Gutenberg who worked on the practical application of the idea of movable type. Thereafter, a number of improvements were made in the printing technology, and this printing technology is also now referred to as the traditional beginning. That is, the print media primarily is primary source of information, but now as we are in the changing form or the digital transformation has occurred, that's why it is told as traditional beginning. Now it has been advised that you don't use papers for printing, you opt for the e-journals, e-paper, e-newspaper, e-statement, everything in the e-form. That is our digital transformation. So in the digital age, the print media has adapted to online platform and e-publications to reach wider guideline. Then what are our challenges and opportunity? The evolution of print media has brought about both challenges and exciting new opportunities for content distribution also. Then, what are the advantages of digital media over print media? Before talking about this, we have to discuss about the actually how the evolution occurred. The evolution was like this. First of all, there was no printing material, and there was very difficulty in passing information. Only verbal communication was there. After that, the audio media. We proceed to the audio media, the radio in the 20th century in 1920 to 1940. From the day of discovery of radio waves till today, we are now also using the radio. So the radio technology gradually progressed at that time, and it also accelerated the it is also accelerated during World War II. Then after that, it was used for entertainment purpose of the people, and it was very much useful in our most widely used in France and Hong Kong. And after that, the use of radio for educational purpose was done, which was also very popular during the time of COVID. Mina radio and educational programs were broadcasted through this radio program. So it could be because people thought at that time that it could be a potential medium for enhancing the knowledge of the people. So it was used in this way. So after that, after radio, there was television, emergence of television, that is audiovisual media. So television, the discovery pertaining to television were made in the late 19th century, and after radio, it has taken the place of the radio and act as a audiovisual material. And also during from the COVID time, it is now being used as a educational audiovisual material also. Then the next way of communication was the telecommunication process. So that the transmission of telegraphic signal over wires was the first development in the field of telecommunication. In 1876, Alexander Graham Bell demonstrated his telephone set and possibility of telephony. Long distance voice transmission was there in telecommunication, so it becomes the next generation thing. So this point to point telephone connection which was demonstrated by Graham Bell was the beginning of the whole world of telecommunication. So this was the third fourth generation thing. Then multimedia communication, after telecommunication, the capability of telecommunication increased and the broadband system came into existence. Broadband is used to describe your high speed transmission signal channel, which is measured in megabits per second, that is your Mbps, and kbps was less than the Mbps. It was a narrow broadband, and it was broadband is in terms of your Mbps. Then convergence of communication technology. Then only we proceed to the digital media. Then what are the advantages of digital media over print media? So digital media has a global reach. It has interactivity, more interactivity, and it is real time update. Like your global reach means digital media enables instant global distribution and audience reach through online platform and social media. Then interactivity features like your comments, sharing, and multimedia content enhance user engagement and interaction. Then real-time update digital platforms allow for immediate update and revision, ensuring content is always current and relevant. So this is the advantage of digital media. Now the libraries are also converted into digital media. Then what are the challenges in the growth of communication technology? There are different factors or different problems in the growth of communication technology. One is your one, maybe you can say the political factor or political problem. The communication in the developing country is a it is also a political necessity. A political system holds the power which can affect the adoption and growth of a particular communication technology in the country. So, in other words, you can say the introduction of new technology in the service of social change and education depends upon the underlying motivation or the will of the political system of the country concerned. You may have remembered that during the COVID period, what happened with us in the use of the communication technology? We have no broadband connections or such network to conduct a video conference or to conduct a class online. So gradually it happened. So it depends on the political factor. So the rapid growth of computer technology in India, both through import and indigenous industrialization, was the result of the interest of the political system of India. So it is an example of political force behind the computer industry or computer technology. What has happened in India, we are the witness at that time of COVID-19. So it is a very important factor, political factor. Then economic factor. So how political factor influence? It has influence on regulation. Political factors heavily influence the regulations and regulation and policies governing communication and communication technology. Then global diplomacy, technological advancement in communication can be affected by international relations and diplomacy. Then your economic factors. So in economic factor is also very important whether we will adopt the technology or not. So the developing countries which import technology from the developed countries, they lack sufficient budget provision to run or afford technology based project. Some countries had made heavy investment in acquiring various technologies without building the necessary infrastructure to make those technologies productive. So as a result of which these countries are under heavy debts. So the point here, the highlighted point is that the growth of the country depends on growth of technology in a country depends on the economic growth of the country. So we have a need to enhance our financial strength of the society, the attitude of the policymakers, the budget allocation for technology, and cost efficiency for technology. So these are the things that need to be focused as a economic factor for growth of technology. So the countries which are economically better with a high per capita income, they have they are more developed, or we are saying that they are developed countries and they have um, more than the developing country. So the technology cost it's very huge amount, and that's why it depends on the economic factor, economic condition of the country. So if you are going to adopt the new technology in a country, so you have to depend on the attitude of the policymakers towards it. It is very important. That's why that is the investment trend. Investment trend means the economic fluctuations that impact the investment trend affecting innovation. So that is the attitude of the policymakers towards it. Now also you are able to see the changes in the attitude. If they perceive that the communication technology being adopted as a helping hand in the development of the country, they would see that the required technology is adopted and implemented in various areas including educational system. The example, you can see the 5T schools of our state. So this is a very important factor. Then we will go to the cultural factor. The common technology plays an important role in disseminating knowledge that we know, but the cultural heritage and stimulating cultural activities are also important. The culture is a complex whole which includes the knowledge, belief, art, moral, laws, custom, and any capabilities and habits acquired by a human being as a member of the society. There are differences in these cultural factors in various societies all over the world. One society differs from another because of these variations. So it is assumed that the variation in the cultural system do function as determinant in implementing technology, their manufacture and utilization. So, um, cultural factor is very essential. So the implementation of technology only possible only when it is used to support the activities of tradition culture that allows development according to the values and norms of that culture. Otherwise it will not be adapted by that cultural society. So uh, these are the all concerned with the cultures. Then we will go to the acceptance and resistance, adaptation to challenges, whether we will adapt or not. Sometime before COVID situation was like this, they will adapt or not. When you are going to say the teachers, you adapt the technology to enhance the learning of the student, but they were not agree with that. They are not able to adapt, or they are not ready to adapt. But what happened during the COVID-19 situation? There is an emergency situation, so automatically they adapted everything. And acceptance and resistance. Somewhere there is resistance that we are not going to use it. So technological innovation must navigate through different cultural attitude and values to gain acceptance. So this was a natural pandemic situation, but that pandemic situation make all people learn to adapt it, accept it. Then there are different technological factors also, like your um, with the technological factor also there are some problems like your appropriateness, your accessibility, then your handling of the electronic device, then your maintenance is also a problem, then software or courseware, all these problems are there, and in spite of this also we are okay, if we can solve the problem, then we will be able to adapt it. So security concern is another factor here. Now also it exists that whether when you are going to adopt the technology, then security concern is coming, the data security, what are the issues, what are the security issue is a big problem now. Then we can move to the educational factors. So in educational factors, as educational factor, that also influence the growth and adoption of the communication technology. The skill gap. Educational institution need to address the skill gap by offering relevant technology focused curricula. As you are saying that you adopt the technology but you have no skills, then you will not be able to adopt the technology. So we have to address the skill gaps. So if skill gap is there, then there will be a problem. Even if you before 3 4 years before COVID, you all we are not able to adapt or to join through Google Meet also. So then lifelong learning. The continuous learning is crucial due to the rapid changes in communication technology and its application. Then ethical education, also technology also include the ethical issues. Education must also focus on ethical consideration in the development and use of communication technology. So there should be a communication policy also. So, on the basis of the issues related to communication policies, in many countries in the world, the broadcasting was started by private agencies, but in due course of time, it was taken over directly or indirectly, fully or partially by the government agency. The radio gradually the government agency took the all the charges. So that the radio broadcasting system, which needs less resources, was also started under the private initiative of an individual or a group of people. On the other hand, you can say that. So in India also the electronic mass media, radio, television and telecommunication are regulated by the government, and during COVID period also this has been changed, and the policy is also decided at that time. So due to the availability of the direct broadcast facility and also the need for more and more programs to feed the transmission, the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting has allowed the private, public and autonomous agency to produce program. So as a result of which the Ministry of Human Resource Development, UGC, Central Institute of Educational Technology, IGNO, Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development through Agriculture University, the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, they have started producing instructional programs for their respective target group. So now also there is a long way to go, but the communication policies need to be strengthened and developed in a proper way so that we can integrate the technology in the process. Okay, then we'll go to the challenges and communication in distance education. Our main concern is with this. What are the challenges of communication in distance education? The technological hurdles. The technical issues can hinder real time communication, affecting quality of online discussion and interaction. That is better to say this is the proper platform. What are the hurdles? The technological hurdle. Suppose I am joining the meeting, but my length broadband length is very less. At that time I'm not able to join. These are the technical hurdles. Then interpretation variability. The differences in interpreting text based communication can lead to misunderstanding and miscommunication. So there may be miscommunication also in case of distance education. Then social isolation. So lack of physical presence can result in feelings of isolation, affecting motivation and engagement. So this is also this will create to these are the challenges of communication in distance education. Some of the challenges we can say that technological hurdles, interpretation variability, social isolation. Then what are the strategies for effective communication in distance education? So when we are in a distance mode, then we have to plan together for effective communication. So to avoid the one-way communication, the strategies must be developed. So what may be the strategies? The clear expectation. So both parties have to decide what are the what things need to be communicated. Clear expectation. So setting clear guidelines for communication method and response time. Then active participation, promoting engagement through interactive discussion and group activities. All these are also active participation. So for active participation also, in the online mode there are different platforms. They are providing some rooms, like your in Zoom also you can get it, in Google Zoom Meet, Microsoft Team also you can get the active participation. There are division of room of sun. Then feedback mechanism, the establishing effective feedback loops to ensure continuous improvement, so that we can expect that the effective communication can occur in the distance education mode. Then, what is the role of technology in facilitating communication in distance education? What is the role of technology in facilitating communication in distance education? So, there may be web conferencing, there may be interactive tools, there may be social media integration. So, web conferencing, we know that video communication. About this interactive tools, there are various interactive tools, and this is not a new concept also, because NCRT is now organizing various workshops to acquaint the teachers with the interactive tools, so that the teacher can develop the interactive audio, video, or materials in the form of interactive mode, and the student can respond to the interactive tools. So then social media integration, so utilizing social media for informal communication and community building among learners, that is your social media integration. Then, what are the benefits of using communication technology? That we know, the enhanced engagement, the students are more engaged. These are the benefits, positive side of the communication technology. The interactive tools and multimedia content capture students' attention. No doubt, there is extended reach, connect with learners globally, breaking geographic barriers. All are getting a better chance to attend the courses. What I want to learn, I can learn at the comfort of my home. So this is extended reach is very beneficial for all of us. Then adaptability, flexible learning modes cater to diverse student needs and ability. Then greater interaction, real time communication fosters active participation and collaboration. So all these are the benefits. Then enhancing student engagement through communication technology, interactive learning, collaborative tools, and personalized feedback. So interactive learning engage students through virtual lab, quizzes, and interactive exercises. Everything is there. Everybody is also integrating the AI tools, so that the students can can be a self learner through this interactive learning technologies. Then collaborative tools, there are certain collaborative platform for group project discussion, peer to peer interaction. So many things are there to enhance the students engagement. Then personalized feedback, so real time feedback and assessment tools to monitor student progress is there. Different online platform, class LMS platforms are there, like your Moodle. So you can provide their personalized feedback and also track the learning of the students. Then facilitating remote learning with communication technology. So communication technology can also facilitate the remote learning. The AI tools are there, the flexible schedule, the accessible learning material for self-paced education. One can go through the material as per the ability and that available of time. Then virtual support, the remote tutoring, academic guidance, counseling services, everything are virtual support is provided, can be provided to remote learning. Then seamless communication, video conferencing, messaging platform. So that's why broadband is now being strengthened. Then, what is the future possibilities of communication technology in teaching? Then it can technological integration. That means seamless incorporation of technology into traditional teaching method. Innovative application, emerging trends like your VR, AR. reality and augmented reality and AI, artificial intelligence for immersive learning experience, then sustainability, environmental impact, and responsible use of technology in education that should be there in future. That will be there in future. Okay, another thing is also there. Okay, then we can also summarize what are the use of technology. Communication technology can be used in our education field, that reaching to different people that we have discussed, and specific uses, and in teaching also we are using it very effectively. Then what are the factors we have discussed. Then problems of using technology also we have discussed. Okay, so this is all about today's discussion.